It would only accelerate as time went on. The U.S. government released hitherto secret files, and the British government followed suit. Vast collections have been digitized and made available online. There are now so many books that a reader can easily specialize, choosing to read about only one particular type of wartime intelligence, and still amass a stack of books that will overwhelm even the sturdiest of nightstands. This is true whether the choice is to read about brilliant cryptanalysts in dingy offices on the Mall in Washington, Navy codebreakers in an airless basement at Pearl Harbor, or Wall Street lawyers descending on the nation's capital to take control of American intelligence, to say nothing of amateur spies spread across the globe and young officers leading guerrillas behind the lines in Europe and Asia. My own reading influenced my career choices, and vice versa, creating my own seemingly inescapable vortex of history and intelligence. I served in the Marine Corps. Like the World War II generation, I believed, and still believe, in national service. I worked for the CIA at home and abroad. This included everything from running individual cases to collecting sensitive information and evaluating major programs as a member of the Office of Inspector General. I taught history and case studies in intelligence at the Naval War College. I researched and wrote history for the CIA Museum, styled "The Best Museum You Never Saw." I wondered about origins and dynamics, especially considering how things got to be the way they are. I found many of the answers in the history of World War II. American spies, codebreakers, and guerrillas created organizations and set precedents during the war. What happened between 1940 and 1945 changed the landscape forever. Before the war, American intelligence was a cottage industry, with a handful of craftsmen working on their own, mostly isolated from one another. They fabricated only a few products, some of them enormously valuable, but not always valued. Neither the craftsmen nor their customers knew what they did not know. Almost no one grasped what was missing. Change came only after the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, jolted the nation awake. But hasn't the story been told? What could be missing from the American intelligence bookshelf? The answer is straightforward. Even among all the books, it is rare to find a crossover, a book that tackles more than one kind of intelligence or agency, asking how each relates to the other, and what, together or separately, each contributed to victory. Unanswered questions abound. It is not unusual to read that codebreakers shortened the war by giving American and Allied leaders a figurative seat at the enemy's table. If that is true, what does it mean for all of the other Americans who worked in intelligence? What was their defining value? Winston Churchill said that his codebreakers were like the geese that laid golden eggs and didn't cackle. Does that mean that other spies laid only ordinary brown eggs and contributed less to victory? Many of them eventually did cackle, judging by the volume of memoirs on both sides of the Atlantic. This crossover book, then, is a look at the main threads of American intelligence in World War II and how they were developed, particularly how they related to each other and where they were positioned at the end of the war. It is mostly about the kinds of intelligence that focused on the foreign field. Whenever possible, I try to look through the practitioner's own eyes to piece together a useful overview for specialists and generalists alike, for students of history as well as intelligence professionals. Rather than offer an exhaustive history, I have chosen topics that are representative and illustrate major trends. Organizing the wonderful plethora of material at my disposal from libraries and archives was a challenge. First, I decided that context was essential. Intelligence history does not stand alone. It is a part of a much larger whole. Modern American intelligence was more of a reaction to events overseas than a homegrown phenomenon. The war in Europe during and after the spring of 1940 is enormously important to this story. But so too is what had happened before World War II. While American